On the evening of November 18, 1987, at 7:30 p.m., King's Cross Station was bustling with its usual crowd. It was the evening rush hour, and thousands of people were at the station to catch the tube. Escalator number 4, leading down to the Piccadilly line, had been running continuously for 25 years. Its wooden steps and mechanism had never been replaced. In the space beneath the escalator, grease, dust, and other flammable materials had accumulated over the years, forming a dangerous layer. London Underground management knew about this risk, but cleaning was repeatedly postponed because it was costly. At 7:33 p.m., a passenger noticed a small flame at the bottom of the escalator. At first, he thought it was nothing serious. He reported it to staff, but left the station without taking the situation seriously. The first responder, a staff member named Christopher Hayes, used water to try to extinguish the small fire. This was a critical and initial mistake. But why was this a mistake? I mean, we all pour water on small flames at home, right? Here's why. When water hits an oil-based fire, it actually spreads and intensifies the flames. Hayes couldn't get the situation under control, so police and fire services were called. However, because the fire looked small, no emergency code was used. At 7:36 p.m., Station Police Officer PC Stephen Hansen arrived at the scene. The fire was still small, visible only at the bottom of the escalator. Hansen assessed the situation, but didn't think he had the authority to close the station. No decision was made to evacuate passengers. No order was given to shut down the station. Trains kept arriving. Passengers kept entering. During these critical 10 minutes, hundreds more people entered the station. At 7:42 p.m., the 1st Fire Brigade team arrived at the station. The team, led by Station Officer Colin Townsley, tried to locate the fire. Townsley was an experienced firefighter with 20 years of service, but even he couldn't see what was happening inside the escalator. From the outside, the fire appeared manageable. Inside, however, the wooden structure was completely engulfed in flames. At 7:45 p.m., flashover occurred. So, what is flashover, and why is it so dangerous? Flashover is when everything in a room suddenly ignites once the temperature reaches a critical point. As the temperature inside the escalator reached critical levels, hot gases rose and accumulated at the ceiling of the ticket hall, growing denser. Pressure was building, temperature was rising. Suddenly, these gases ignited, and a massive wave of flame spread across the ceiling. Within seconds, the temperature exceeded 600 degrees Celsius. Plastic materials melted, metal doors warped, paint on the walls vaporized. This phenomenon wasn't understood at the time. Even fire brigade crews were encountering this kind of fire behavior for the first time. The flashover at King's Cross was particularly devastating because the 30-degree angle of the escalator created a chimney effect. Flames and hot gases shot directly upward into the ticket hall. Calculations made afterward showed that the flames covered the 30-meter distance in just 10 seconds. Within seconds, the ticket hall turned into hell. Passengers and staff waiting inside had no time to escape. Some collapsed without understanding what was happening. The metal doors warped from the heat and became impossible to open. Some people tried crawling along the floor looking for exits, but smoke filled their lungs. Hot air burned their airways. Many people were poisoned by smoke and lost consciousness within seconds. That night, 31 people lost their lives. Most of the victims were in the ticket hall. Among them was station staff member Colin Townsley. Townsley had gone in to rescue passengers and never came back out. His body was found a day later. Townsley's death particularly resonated because he had died in the line of duty. His family later launched a campaign demanding better equipment for firefighters. The number of injured exceeded 100. Many suffered severe burns, smoke inhalation, and crush injuries. Some of those taken to hospitals remained in intensive care for weeks. Chaos erupted in the emergency rooms at University College Hospital and St. Bartholomew's Hospital. The treatment process lasted months. Many survivors also suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder. Some could never ride the tube again and became unable to enter enclosed spaces. The victims' identities were determined days later. Notifying families was incredibly difficult. Some bodies were so badly damaged that DNA testing was required. DNA testing was still new technology at the time, and the process took a long time. Funerals continued for weeks. A heavy atmosphere of mourning settled over London. A memorial service was held at Westminster Abbey. A formal investigation was launched a week after the fire. It was led by Desmond Fenwick. Fenwick was an experienced judge and fire safety expert. Fenwick's investigation lasted 91 days and heard from 157 witnesses. The resulting report was 250 pages long and was published in November 1988. The report had a shocking impact on the public. The Fenwick report revealed these critical findings: negligence and responsibility. London Underground management hadn't taken fire safety seriously. Between 1985 and 1987, 3 more small fires had broken out at Oxford Circus Station, and warning signs had been given. None were heeded. There had been another small fire at King's Cross in 1985 that was ignored. Management had classified fire risk as an acceptable risk. This approach was harshly criticized in the report. Wooden structures. The London Underground was still using wooden escalators. These dated from the 1940s. There were 46 wooden escalators in total. Wood posed a major fire hazard, but replacement was postponed because it was expensive. Each one cost around £250,000 to replace. Lack of maintenance. The underside of escalators was never cleaned. Grease, dust, and flammable materials had been accumulating for years. There wasn't even a cleaning protocol. Engineers hadn't opened the lower section of the escalator or seen the grease buildup. The last detailed maintenance had been in 1956, 31 years earlier. Training deficiencies. Staff didn't know what to do in case of fire. There was no evacuation procedure. Coordination with the fire brigade was lacking. Staff didn't even know how to properly use fire extinguishers. Theoretical training was given once a year. Practical drills had never been conducted. Failure to enforce the smoking ban. Smoking had been banned in the station since 1985, but the ban wasn't enforced. Staff didn't issue warnings. It was determined that the fire probably started from a discarded cigarette butt. More than 30 cigarette butts were found under the escalator. Lack of emergency protocols. There were no clear answers to basic questions like who could close the station, when to evacuate, or how to call the fire brigade. There was confusion about authority among staff. The decision-making process was far too slow. The King's Cross fire also had an impact on the scientific world. Desmond Fenwick sought help from scientists to explain the flashover phenomenon. Research was conducted at the Health and Safety Laboratory in London. Experts led by Dr. Sims worked on it. Scientists built an exact model of the King's Cross escalator. A 1/3 scale model was used. They recreated and studied the fire in a laboratory setting. Hundreds of experimental tests were conducted. These experiments revealed a new phenomenon called the trench effect. A fire that starts on an inclined surface rapidly moves upward due to the chimney effect and grows much faster than normal. Are there trench effect dangers we might encounter in everyday life? Yes. Small fires that start on sloped roofs, stairs, or ramps can spread very quickly using the same principle. Flames travel 5 to 10 times faster than they would on a flat surface. These findings revolutionized fire safety literature. Safety standards were rewritten in buildings and metro stations worldwide. The trench effect is now one of the fundamental topics in fire engineering education. The Fenwick Report made 157 recommendations. London Underground agreed to implement all of them. The implementation process began in 1988. Physical changes. All wooden escalators were replaced with metal ones. This operation took 3 years and cost £15 million. The last wooden escalator was removed in 1991. Automatic fire suppression systems were installed at every station. Sprinkler systems were fitted. Smoke detectors were placed every 10 meters. Emergency lighting was enhanced. Operational changes. The smoking ban began to be strictly enforced. Violators were fined £10. Over 200 security cameras were installed in stations. Sprinkler systems were added to almost every area. Sprinkler systems can extinguish fires at a much earlier stage. How do sprinkler systems extinguish fires at an early stage? Like this. The glass bulbs in the system break at 68 degrees Celsius and immediately begin spraying water. Each head shoots out 80 liters of pressurized water per second, extinguishing the fire before it can grow. Fire sensors were placed throughout all areas, and a 24-hour monitoring center was established. Staff training. All staff received mandatory fire training. Training was repeated every 6 months. Evacuation drills became regular. Joint exercises were conducted with the fire brigade. Emergency protocols were created. Simulation training was initiated. Organizational reform. London Underground's management structure was completely changed. A safety department was established with a 50-person team. An independent audit mechanism was created. Regular risk assessments became mandatory. A safety officer was appointed at each station. London Underground paid a total of £14 million in compensation to victims' families. This was a very high figure by 1988 standards. Each family received an average of £450,000. Some families went to court and received additional compensation. The highest compensation was paid to Colin Townsley's family, £650,000. Insurance companies paid London Underground £47 million. This was one of the largest fire insurance payouts in British history. However, station renovation and safety measures cost £75 million. The £28 million difference was covered by the public budget. This was debated in Parliament. The London Borough Council reviewed its budget after the fire. The safety budget allocated to the metro system was increased by 300%. The budget, which was £8 million in 1987, rose to £32 million by 1990. The central government created a special fund for public transport safety nationwide. £200 million was allocated. Insurance premiums also changed. London Underground's annual insurance premium increased by 400%. Other metro systems premiums also rose. Insurance companies demanded regular audits. The King's Cross disaster left a deep mark on British society. Margaret Thatcher's government came under public pressure. Privatization policies were criticized. The argument that safety standards in public services had been lowered gained strength. Opposition parties used the situation as political ammunition. The media kept the fire in the headlines for weeks. The BBC produced a special documentary. The Disaster at King's Cross program was watched by 8 million people. The Times, Guardian, and Daily Telegraph newspapers followed the investigation step by step. When the Fenwick Report was published, it was headline news in all papers. Townsley was awarded the George Medal. This is the highest medal for civilian bravery. Survivors formed support groups. The King's Cross Survivors Group was established in 1988. Group members received trauma treatment and supported each other. Some underwent therapy for years. The King's Cross fire led to metro safety reforms worldwide. New York's MTA removed all wooden structures. Paris Metro upgraded its safety systems. Tokyo's metro increased fire drills. Moscow's metro installed new smoke detectors. King's Cross became a case study at international fire safety conferences. A conference in Boston in 1989 was attended by 300 experts from 40 countries. It became a topic in engineering faculties. King's Cross was taught in courses at MIT, Stanford, and Cambridge. Flashover and the trench effect became fundamental topics in fire science. Hundreds of scientific papers were published. Dr. Sims's work was accepted as the gold standard. In 1992, a memorial to the victims was unveiled at King's Cross Station. A bronze plaque bears the names of the 31 victims. Prince Charles performed the opening. An annual memorial service is held at St. Pancras Church on November 18th. A major commemoration event was held on the 30th anniversary in 2017. Survivors and victims' families came together. There's a special section for the King's Cross fire at the London Fire Brigade Museum. Equipment used that night, Colin Townsley's helmet, photographs, and documents are on display. Thousands of visitors tour this section every year. King's Cross is now one of the world's most modern stations. A £500 million renovation was completed in 2012. But what happened that night has never been forgotten. Every new safety protocol, every new technology is a reminder of that night. The lessons learned following the loss of 31 lives now ensure the safety of millions. The fire was a painful lesson in how deadly negligence can be. Thanks for listening. See you in the next videos. Goodbye.